Hi BookTube, welcome to another fiction review. Today's book, very easy to pitch. It opens with the arrest of our narrator, and it's clear early on that she is the chief suspect in a murder case. You occupy the narrator's mind, you're hearing all her thoughts, and she seems to know too much to be innocent, and yet something isn't quite right, and the only way that you can work out the truth is to keep on reading. The book we're looking at today is The Earthquake Bird, a novel of mystery by Susanna Jones, published in 2001. Amazon prices, you can see on screen there. It is a crime novel, but a little bit different, and I liked the difference myself. And it was award-winning. When it came out, it won the John Llewellyn Rhys Prize, it won a Betty Trask Award, and it won the Crime Writers Association John Creasy Dagger Award for Best Debut Novel. You can see that I bought it for its title. It's one of my winning titles. TBR, we are getting through that steadily but surely, still on track to finish by the end of the year. This would make a really good book for Shorty September if you haven't already chosen all your books for that, which, most people probably have, but I'm going to recommend this one because although it says 257 pages here on the slide, the truth is the text is 14 point. There are very generous white spaces around the text on each page. It is double-spaced text. There are blank pages between each chapter. So the truth is, I think this story was bulked out a bit in its printing style to make it longer. I believe that had it been published with, say, 12-point font and with slightly narrower margins and single-spaced or 1.5 spaced, it would have come in under 200 pages. A word about our author now. Susanna Jones was born in 1967. She came from Hull, which is in the north of England. She went to Royal Holloway University in 1988, and she got her master's in novel writing from the University of Manchester in 1996. Now, like the protagonist of her novel, Susanna also spent several years living in Japan. Her first publication, of course, is this book, which came out in 2001. Now, her latest work, When the Nights Were Cold, came out in 2012. What Susanna has been doing, because you're thinking, wow, it's a big gap, she has now 30 years experience as a teacher. From 2003 to 2018, she was the main fiction tutor on the MA in Creative Writing program at Royal Holloway University, her alma mater. Many of her former students have gone on to publish novels and win awards, and she has taught students of all levels from beginners to PhD. And she now specializes in teaching small workshop groups and one-to-one mentoring. And I will include in my description box a link to that workshop website. Let's talk about the setting. The novel is set in Japan. For most of the time, you are in the urban and built-up areas in Tokyo, but there is also a significant weekend trip to Sado Island, which I will show you on a map right now. There we go, which makes up 50 of the 257 pages in the novel. The narrator describes it this way. She says, it's an island in the Japan Sea, a beautiful place with lots of temples and clear blue sea. So you have this contrast between the built-up and urban areas where there are many people and many places and where you can be anonymous, with the green isolation of Sado. The narrator makes us aware before the trip that Sado Island was, in Japan's past, a place where people were sent as exiles. The narrator only knows about its existence because a Japanese woman whom she befriends has a story to tell about how she left the island and abandoned her husband and her child at the same time. In terms of time, the setting chops up time and reassembles it. Some people like those kind of books, some people don't. It was very clear to follow. You begin with the arrest of the narrator, who, while she's being held in custody, she recalls how she came to Japan, and she shares with the reader the testimony that she's reluctant to give the police. She thinks they will misunderstand what she says. Once that whole story is recounted, then we sort of return to the present moment as you were with the narrator, and we see what happens next. Narration is first person. Our narrator is Lucy Fly. She's 34 years old. She was born and grew up in Yorkshire, but for different reasons, she's never felt as though she belonged there. She chose to study Japanese at university with the deliberate intention of putting herself far away from anything familiar, but also to ensure that her family, her friends, in fact, anybody from Yorkshire will be unlikely to ever visit her. As you read the book, this is another mystery about Lucy's identity, which unfolds along with the story of the murder. Regarding number of characters, if you don't count people that Lucy has to mention while she's telling the story of her growing up, people who don't really play an active role in the present moment of the story, then really there are less than 10 characters that you need to deal with. Very simple story. Lucy isn't the gregarious type, so you don't go to a lot of crowded places and have to meet a lot of people. Generally, she is only conversing with 1-2 people at the most. And all the active characters live and work in Tokyo. They get around by walking, traveling by train. There is one scene where a female character walks all night through various parts of the city, following the train line, sort of walking in parallel with it from station to station. And she doesn't meet anyone suspicious, and at no time does she feel unsafe. That seems to underline how unusual murder is. Japan has much lower levels of violent crime than the United States or the United Kingdom. And I think this story is put in Japan. It makes the murder seem more horrible because it's not what happens in Japan. And as far as representation goes, this story is really more about English expats who live in Japan and the Japanese people they happen to meet. It's not about life as lived by Japanese characters, although naturally Lucy Fly meets and befriends Japanese people, but you feel that cultural separation, right? Particularly when characters misunderstand each other. Let's talk about problematic content. It is a murder mystery, so it's to be expected that there will be some descriptions of death or discovered bodies. Everything about the earthquake bird is minimal, like its length. So descriptions are to the point. There's no dwelling on the details. The sexual content, that's a different matter. Some encounters are described indirectly, if you like. You read that 2 characters who don't normally live together wake up in the same bed, so you surmise the rest. But in other situations, there is more detail, and one encounter indirectly described, but it does involve a minor. The prose, as I've said before, is very terse, very economical. It says what must be said, and it doesn't say much more. And it's much the same way that Lily behaves after she's arrested, when the police are trying to get her to talk. I'll read a passage now from page 9. My captor shows me to a chair in a small room. He sits opposite me and looks everywhere but at my face. I'm not complaining. Why should he have to look at my face? Lucy is not an oil painting, as everyone who has seen her knows. When I am comfortably seated, though, he forces his eyes upon my face, only to find that now he can't let go. There's something about my eyes. I know this. I want you to tell me about the night Lily Bridgesan disappeared. Do we know what night she disappeared? The night after which she was never seen again. As far as we know, you were the last person she spoke to. I've already told you about that. I'd like you to tell me again. I was in my flat. The doorbell rang. I answered it. It was Lily. We spoke for a minute or so, and she left. And I went back inside. After that, nothing. I don't remember. I was bringing my washing in. When Lily called, I probably returned to doing that. One of your neighbors saw you on the walkway outside your front door, speaking to Bridgesan. I rolled my eyes. Then presumably he or she saw what I just told you. He stares at me, like a teacher waiting patiently for a child's confession, knowing it will come. Okay, I went after her about 5 minutes later. There was something I'd forgotten to tell her. So you spoke to her again? No, I didn't find her. You assumed she was going to the station? Yes, I don't know where else she could have gone. I don't believe she knew my area of Tokyo well. The route from your apartment to the station is fairly straightforward, is it not? And the streets are well lit at night. That's true. But I didn't find her. I don't know where she went. Would you tell me the nature of the conversation you had at your front door? I shake my head. You don't remember it? I remember it. Then please share it with me. No. Your neighbor reported that you were angry. You shouted at Bridges-san. I don't shout. You weren't angry? I was angry. Your neighbor said that you appeared to be carrying something, a bundle of some kind. I snort. Who is this neighbor? Miss Marple? I know very well that it was my vacuuming neighbor from next door. She has always struck me as having a fertile imagination. She vacuums aggressively for hours every day, and sometimes in the middle of the night. There must be some wild ideas inside her head. Besides, she is my only immediate neighbor. There are just 2 flats above the petrol station, and one is mine. I suppose it's a pity we never became friends, but it's too late now. And we have a rabbit hole, which concerns a particular Japanese word, hen, translated into English often as strange, but that doesn't give you enough information. On page 171, Lucy will recall that her Japanese boyfriend, Teji, once said that she was a bit strange. She can't remember if he said that in English or in Japanese, but she knows that if he said it in Japanese, the word he would have used was hen. You will find links in my description box, which will help with the understanding of this term, because you have to compare it to other Japanese words which can also be translated as strange. For example, kawatta. Kawatta is a neutral term. It means that something is out of the ordinary, but it's not a cause for concern. Hen, on the other hand, has a creepy, uncanny connotation to its strangeness. And you can get a sense of this if you follow the link in my description box to a trailer for a Japanese film, which the translated English title is The Strange House. You don't need to know a word of Japanese to understand the menacing nature of the strangeness. It's obviously a horror film. And I believe the film is based on a novel called Strange Houses by the author Uketsu. And the description box will have a link to that book also if you're fascinated and you want to read more. There is a strangeness in this novel. Unanswered questions about things which have happened to the characters. And while some questions are answered, the end of the book leaves the reader with most of the strangeness plus an additional question arising from what you learn about the murder. So the subtitle, A Novel of Mystery, it's not a marketing ploy. Mystery is completely inescapable. Also, the title is interesting, The Earthquake Bird. That is another strange or hen aspect of this book. One of the mysteries that you're left with is, what is this strange sound which Lucy has heard more than once and which always happens a few seconds before a tremor while she's living in Japan? And it sounds to her like birdsong. She always identifies it as birdsong. I went on the US Geological Survey site because I thought, will they be able to tell me, is there a particular bird anywhere in the world which you can rely upon? If you hear their song or a particular aspect of their song, you know that you're seconds away from an earth tremor. And they suggest that, yes, there's an abundance of anecdotal evidence about animals behaving differently hours or seconds before a quake, but we don't have anything absolutely nailed down and confirmed so that it could be given out as scientific fact. So the sound that Lucy hears, is it a real bird? Or is it a sound that she is just hearing in her mind? Is she able to hear or be given premonitions of things which are to happen? And that's just part of her strangeness. And that's the review done. Please check out the description box. It is loaded with links that I have mentioned. What's coming up? You've got Middlemarch Meditation coming up this Sunday. I'm doing back-to-back filming today, so there's going to be a non-fiction review. And also, I have been working hard thinking hard about a script for the reading philosophy tag, Lectin's reading philosophy tag. I'm going to mention Lectin in the description box as well, so he sees this to know. Round about either middle or end of the first week of September, Lectin, I'm going to cover this tag because I found your questions fascinating. Okay, everybody. In the meantime, I hope your reading is going well. I hope you've got yourself all sorted and ready for September, hopefully, and good luck with your reading, as always. Until next time then, take care. Bye-bye.